The cold mist rolled off the water in thick waves, obscuring everything beyond 10 feet. Willow Kane stood at the edge of the abandoned pier, her hands trembling not from the January chill, but from the weight of what she was about to do. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, a dangerous information broker with connections to Jen Sidwell waited. Behind her lay everything she'd lost: her children, her dignity, her moral compass. "I never thought I'd end up here," she whispered to herself, pulling her coat tighter against the damp air. But desperation makes monsters of us all. The road to ruin. Michael Corinthos had won. That was the bitter truth Willow had been forced to swallow for weeks now. Despite her acquittal in Drew's shooting, despite Alexis Davis's brilliant legal maneuvering, Michael had successfully blocked her access to Wiley and Amelia. The custody arrangements stood firm, enforced by judges and lawyers, and the iron will of a man who had once promised to love her forever. Every supervised visitation denied, every phone call that went unanswered, every bedtime story she couldn't tell. The pain had become unbearable, driving her to consider options she would have found unthinkable just months ago. Drew had promised to help, but his promises had proven as substantial as the fog now surrounding her. Martin Gray had exhausted every legal avenue. Elizabeth had offered comfort, but no solutions. Willow needed something more, something outside the law, something that could give her leverage against the Corinthos machine. That's when she'd heard whispers about a man who traded in secrets. A broker of information who could dig up dirt on anyone who had connections to Jen Sidwell's network, who operated in the shadows where the law couldn't reach. It was dangerous, possibly deadly. But what choice did she have? "You came alone." Smart. The voice emerged from the fog before its owner did. A tall figure materialized, features obscured by the mist, and a pulled-up collar. Willow couldn't see his face clearly, but she could feel the menace radiating from him. "You have what I need?" Willow asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Depends." "You have what I want." The devil's bargain. The information broker circled her slowly, his footsteps echoing on the wet planks. Willow fought the urge to run. She'd come too far to back out now. "I have information about Danny and Scout," Morgan Willow said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Details about their routines, their security, their vulnerabilities. Jason Morgan's kids. That has to be worth something to Sidwell's people." She hated herself for even saying the words. Danny and Scout were innocent children, just like her own. But she'd rationalized it to herself during the sleepless nights leading up to this meeting. She wouldn't give them anything that would actually endanger the kids. Just enough to seem valuable, just enough to get what she needed in return. The brokers stopped walking. Jason Morgan's kids. He seemed to consider that could be valuable. "What do you want in exchange?" "Legal help. The kind that doesn't ask questions. I need dirt on Michael Corinthos, something that will force him to give me back my children. Court documents, altered judges, influenced, whatever it takes. You're talking about serious crimes, Mrs. Kane." "I'm talking about getting my babies back." Willow shot back, her voice cracking with emotion. "By any means necessary?" The broker pulled out a phone, the screen's glow illuminating his face for just a moment. Willow caught a glimpse of cold eyes and a cruel smile before the darkness swallowed him again. "Let me make a call," he said. "My associate will want to verify the value of your information." As he stepped away, speaking in low tones into the phone, Willow felt her heart hammering against her ribs. What was she doing? This went against everything she believed in, everything she'd built her life around. She was a nurse, a healer, someone who protected children, not someone who traded information about them like currency. But Michael had driven her to this. Michael and his family, and their endless resources, and their ability to manipulate the system, they'd left her no choice. Or had they? There's a problem. The broker's words cut through her thoughts. He'd finished his call and was walking back toward her, but his posture had changed. He seemed tenser, more aggressive. "What kind of problem?" Willow asked, taking an involuntary step backward. "My associate says your information isn't as valuable as you claimed. Danny and Scout's security has been upgraded recently. Your intel is outdated." His voice had gone cold, dangerous. "You tried to cheat us, Mrs. Kane." "That was a mistake." "No, I didn't know." "Doesn't matter what you knew. What matters is you wasted our time. And that has consequences." Two more figures emerged from the fog behind him. Willow's blood ran cold. This wasn't going to end with her just walking away. "Please," she said, hating the pleading note in her voice. "I made a mistake. I'll leave. I won't say anything to anyone." Too late for that. Intervention and chaos. The first gunshot shattered the night. Willow screamed and dropped to the deck as chaos erupted around her. More shots rang out, muzzle flashes creating brief strobe light effects in the fog. She couldn't tell who was shooting at whom, couldn't see anything beyond confused shapes moving in the mist. "Stay down." A strong hand grabbed her shoulder, pulling her behind a stack of old crates. Willow found herself staring up at Jason Morgan's intense face. "Jason, what are you—" "No time. Keep your head down." Jason had his gun drawn, scanning the pier with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd been in far too many firefights. More shots echoed through the fog. Willow heard shouting, the sound of running feet on wet wood, someone crying out in pain. There. Jason fired twice toward a shadow moving through the mist. The shadow fell. The information broker and his associates were fighting back, but they were clearly outmatched. Jason hadn't come alone. Willow could hear other voices, other weapons firing in coordinated patterns. This was a rescue operation, though she had no idea how Jason had known she'd be here. "We need to move," Jason said urgently. "Can you run?" Willow nodded, not trusting her voice. Jason grabbed her hand and pulled her to her feet, keeping himself between her and the gunfire. They ran along the pier toward the shore, bullets splintering the wood around them. Behind them, Willow heard screams that would haunt her dreams. The aftermath. They made it to shore, where Jason practically threw Willow into a waiting car. As they sped away from the pier, Willow looked back and saw the flashing lights of emergency vehicles arriving. The fog was lifting slightly, revealing the carnage she'd helped create. "2 witnesses," Jason said grimly, not looking at her. They were watching from a boat nearby, probably working for Sidwell, gathering intelligence. They got caught in the crossfire. Are they dead? Both of them. Willow felt bile rising in her throat. She rolled down the window and took deep, gasping breaths of the cold air, trying not to vomit. "How did you know I was there?" she finally managed to ask. "Elizabeth. She heard you on the phone, got worried, called me." Jason's jaw was tight with controlled anger. "What the hell were you thinking, Willow, meeting with Sidwell's people, trying to trade information about my kids? I wasn't really going to. I didn't mean..." "You didn't mean to get 2 people killed." Jason's voice was harsh, now the protective rescuer replaced by the ruthless enforcer. "You didn't mean to put yourself and everyone connected to you in danger. What exactly didn't you mean to do?" Willow had no answer. She pressed her hands against her face, feeling tears burning behind her eyes. "I just wanted my children back," she whispered. "I just wanted to see them." Jason was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter but no less intense. "There are lines you don't cross, Willow. Not even for your kids. You tried to use Danny and Scout as bargaining chips. You made a deal with criminals connected to one of the most dangerous organizations in Port Charles. You could have gotten yourself killed, and you damn near did. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you made the same kind of reckless, selfish choice that got Drew shot in the first place." The words hit Willow like a physical blow. She'd spent months trying to justify her actions, trying to convince herself that shooting Drew had been an accident, that circumstances had conspired against her, that she was the victim in all of this. But Jason was right. She'd made terrible choices one after another, each one more desperate than the last. And now 2 people were dead because she'd been willing to trade information about innocent children for her own gain. The weight of guilt. The safe house Jason took her to was sparse and cold. He left her there with instructions, not to leave, not to call anyone, not to do anything until he figured out how to clean up the mess she'd made. Willow sat on the edge of the narrow bed, staring at her shaking hands. In the silence, she could hear the gunshots again, could see the muzzle flashes, could hear those final terrible screams. 2 people dead, 2 lives ended because of her choices. She thought about their families, people she would never know who would wake up tomorrow to devastating news. People who would wonder why their loved ones had died on a foggy pier in the middle of the night. The answers would eventually emerge: connections to organized crime, illegal information, trading the dangerous world of Jen Sidwell's network. But the real answer was simpler. They died because Willow Kane had been willing to sacrifice her principles for her ambition. Her phone buzzed. Willow looked at the screen and saw a text from Michael. Wiley asked about you today. I told him you were busy. Maybe someday you'll get your priorities straight. The cruel irony made her laugh bitterly. Her priorities had been nothing but her children for weeks now. Everything she'd done, every terrible choice, every line she'd crossed, it had all been for Wiley and Amelia. But somewhere along the way, her love for them had twisted into something dark and desperate. She'd convinced herself that the ends justified the means, that getting her children back was worth any price. She'd been willing to use other children to deal with criminals, to abandon every moral principle she'd ever held. And for what? She was still separated from her kids. She was still powerless against Michael's legal maneuvering. The only difference now was the blood on her hands, metaphorical perhaps, but no less real for it. The price of ambition. As dawn broke over Port Charles, Willow finally allowed herself to cry. Not the angry, frustrated tears she'd shed in recent weeks, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere far down in her soul. She cried for the witnesses who died on the pier. For Danny and Scout, whom she'd been willing to use as pawns. For her own children who deserved a mother who was better than this? For the person she used to be before desperation had stripped away her humanity. Jason returned as the sun was fully up, bringing coffee and a change of clothes. The scene is cleaned up, he said without preamble. Official story is a gang dispute. Your name won't be connected to it, but that protection comes with a price. What price? You stay away from Sidwell's people. You stop trying to fight dirty. You work within the system or you don't work at all. His eyes were hard. And you never, ever use my kids as leverage again. Are we clear? Crystal clear. Good. I'll take you back to Elizabeth's. From there, you're on your own. I helped you tonight because you're family, because Drew would have wanted me to. But I'm done. The next time you make a choice this stupid, I won't be there to save you. Willow nodded, unable to speak. Jason's rescue had saved her life, but it couldn't save her from herself. That was work she'd have to do alone. As they drove through the quiet morning streets, Willow stared out the window at the city waking up. Somewhere out there, Wiley and Amelia were probably eating breakfast, getting ready for school, living their lives without her. Michael had won by playing by the rules, or at least by bending them more skillfully than she had. She'd lost by abandoning the rules entirely. The fog had burned away in the morning light, revealing the world in sharp, unforgiving clarity. Willow would have to live with what she'd done, with the choices she'd made, with the price 2 innocent witnesses had paid for her ambition. Getting her children back, if that was even possible, now would require something she'd lost somewhere along the way. Not just legal strategy or powerful allies or inside information. It would require her to become someone worthy of being their mother again. Someone who understood that some lines should never be crossed no matter how desperate you become. Someone who could look at herself in the mirror without seeing the ghost of those 2 witnesses staring back. The question was, after everything she'd done, could she find her way back to that person? Or had she crossed one too many lines? Made one too many terrible choices? Only time would tell. And time was the one thing Willow had plenty of now, alone, haunted and living with the consequences of her desperation.